Awesome. Well, my name's Mike Gaudio. I'm a head of agency at Google. Been here for about 11 years, and this is my favorite thing to do. I love meeting with clients. I love working with agencies like OMG. And I just wanted to start off by saying thank you all, because I wouldn't have a job if it wasn't for all of your awesome businesses and advertising through Google and doing the things that allow us to try to change the world here at Google. So thank you, and welcome to the Spruce Goose. There's some ghosts around here, so on the tour later today, if you see or hear anything weird, that's what we got going. But yeah, we're really excited to kind of talk through YouTube. A little bit more background on me. I've been at Google for, like I said, 11 years, all of which I've worked with agencies, and for about 3/4 of that, I worked with more traditional agencies, helping them figure out how to move creative and TV spend to digital video. And so it's been really fun now seeing the evolution of YouTube and how it's been democratized, and it's become more of a platform that anybody, like including my dad, who's a dentist who spends like $100 a month on Google, can use to further their business. So that's kind of the theme for today. But Brett and I are going to kind of co-present, and so I'm going to pass it over to him to start. And again, thanks for joining us.
Awesome. And then I'm Brett Curry, CEO of OMG Commerce, and just thrilled you guys are here. How many of you are pumped to be in the Spruce Goose? Anybody looking forward to the tour later? Woo! Yeah. And shout out to the Google team, amazing hosts. They're a ton of fun. This is going to be really good. I'm confident that a session like this morning is powered by two things. Caffeine, hopefully you had a lot. And then two, potentially road rage from your commute in LA traffic. So those two, you're probably laser focused, you're a little bit on edge, and you're ready to learn about YouTube. So it's going to be a packed day. It's going to be fun. It's going to be inspiring. It's going to be helpful. And so excited to dig in. I believe right now is one of the best times to be a marketer, to be a brand, but also one of the most challenging times, right? And so part of that is our customers are fickle. Would anybody describe your customer base as sometimes fickle? Some of them. Okay, you guys don't, okay, maybe you don't believe that. Okay, all right.
Great.
Maybe research shows this, but that's good. You got loyal customers, which is great. But also there are fragmented media options, right? So we could go anywhere, consume anything. There's also this quest, this unrelenting drive to do more for less. And as costs go up in everything, ads, supply chain, you got to get creative to deliver business outcomes efficiently. And then we got AI. We got AI opportunities. How do we navigate those? How do we get the most of those? And a lot of that is driving video consumption changes. There are actually two trends that are really fascinating to me, and they seem like they're opposites. One of them is YouTube Shorts. How many of you guys, as a viewer, like YouTube Shorts? That's okay, that's a lot. Okay, great. So 50 billion views on Shorts daily. My kids love YouTube Shorts, but also connected TVs, streaming TVs. I just saw a study from Nielsen. Now more people stream YouTube on their smart TV than stream Netflix. And so you got this long form, long session viewing happening on connected TVs, and you got Shorts. You got lots of ways to reach the right audience. And of course, all of this is driven by creators, right? And creators, they're faster than traditional studios and traditional media. They're more relevant to their audiences. I know for my kids, if I see them watching TV in the evenings, they're usually watching their favorite YouTube creator. And so ample ways to get the right message to the right person. And then what's really interesting, that stat there on the left, 77% of shoppers take up to 6 months to make a purchase decision. We'll talk a little bit more about post-purchase surveys later, but what's fascinating to me, and I've seen a lot of data on this, if you ask the question, why did you buy today? You'll get an answer on what media brought that person to you today. But then if you ask, when did you first hear about our brand? You may be surprised. Even for like apparel brands and other brands, sometimes that first touch point was 6 months ago, and now someone is just now purchasing. So sometimes a longer consideration set. And I think some of this is fueled by there's more openness to try new brands. So 47% of customers said they've tried a new brand that they've never bought from in the past in the last month. So I remember, like, I was a kid in the 80s and 90s, you kind of bought like what your parents bought. That's the way it worked. There's more openness to brands now than really ever before. And so in a world where we can watch anything, people are watching YouTube. My 6-year-old son, Benjamin, my 73-year-old dad, they consume YouTube really on any device, any content type. Viewers are there. And so we're going to talk about how do we use that to influence shopping behavior, because that's what this is all about. How do we influence shopping behavior? And so we're going to break that down today.
Cool. This is my piece, right? Yep. Cool. So in order to know about that, I promise you we're not going to talk too much about product today. We want to keep it high level, strategic, thoughtful. But I just wanted to break down a little bit about how AI is really changing Google's products and allowing you all to meet your consumers in those times and in those parts of the decision-making process that Brett talked about in a pretty seamless and automated fashion. So it's really about the different connections, right? So how do you connect with people? This hasn't changed in marketing. You have a great product, you have creative or content that showcases that product, and you know who your consumer is. AI and YouTube AI specifically helps you expand upon that and helps you really narrow those things down more quickly than maybe you would have done 10, 15, 20 years ago with a TV buy. And so this is just a very small example of what we use to try to understand who your consumers are. It's literally tens of thousands of inputs while they're actively in the auction to understand things like what your goal is, what your profit margin is towards your bid, right? Not just, hey, what's the cost per click? What device is that user on? How have they engaged with ads in the past? Which ads have they engaged with? And which ones in sequence might make the most sense to drive them towards the goal that you have? What is that goal? Maybe it's just getting their awareness and their eyeballs on it. That should cost way less than an ultimate conversion. And so all of those different factors are going into, in milliseconds, determining which ad on which platform to which person should be shown at which time. And it's not something that really can be done manually anymore, but it's something that takes the inputs that Brett and OMG and you all put in there and find the audience in the way that resonates best with them. And I wanted to talk a bit about what that really means, because if you walk away from with one thing from my part of the presentation this morning, it is understand that these next 4 slides are very high level about the different types of products within YouTube, and that they all optimize completely differently based on what that goal is. So Google, oftentimes people look at it as like a lower funnel kind of conversion machine, and we've done a really good job of making ourselves that. But YouTube is changing the way you can reach your consumers, and it literally optimizes differently. So if you think about YouTube in that sense, you're probably cutting out about 80 or 90% of your audience that you could reach, right? And we'll talk about the conversion piece, but let's start about at the beginning, right? What is the ultimate way to get people to understand or to learn about your message? It's reach and frequency. We have the ability to target them in that sense, lower CPMs, more reach. You know, there's about, I think at the latest stat was about 270 million of the 330 million people in the US watch at least one video a month on YouTube. It's pretty good reach. But how do you reach them with a conversion campaign? You don't. You reach them this way. The next one to think about is, how do you think about viewing, right? That's consideration. We want people to spend time with our content, understand what our product or our offering will do for them, what problems it will solve. We can now look at, hey, which part of our audience is most likely to spend the full video, part of the video, whatever is going to be most impactful for you, and we can report on that. We can look at actual retention curves and say, hey, here's where the majority of your viewership dropped off. Let's go dig into our creative and figure out, did we get our message out there? Did we talk about our brand? Did we give them the right pitch, so to speak, in that time period, and adjust and optimize your creative in that sense? Then people start thinking about, oh, maybe I really want to buy that product. And you got to keep reminding them that. You have to bring them into the fold. And that's where things like demand gen, that's going to actively engage across multiple parts of Google's platform, right? So now when they're in the part of that 6-month research phase, you're getting in front of them and giving them the parts and pieces of information that they need to be informed and to buy your product or your service. And then finally, video action, right? So that's where we, I would say do ourselves a disservice by over marketing on how many conversions you can get from video action. You can, but the full funnel kind of approach to video with Google is what's really going to help you reach the amount of people you need to get them to think about your product as a viable option, to bring them onto your site or into your store, or calling your call center or working with a sales rep to make that ultimate purchase. So again, just to reiterate, one thing from my part, they all optimize differently. Each one plays a really, really important role. We need to think about, how many people do we need to reach to get them to ultimately buy from us, and think about where we fit within that decision-making and purchase funnel if we're going to use YouTube effectively. So with that, I'm going to pass it back to Brett.
So we're going to talk a lot about creative today. It's super important to reach the right person at the right time when they're in research mode or buying mode, but at least half the battle, maybe more, is creative. And so I'm going to talk about some frameworks. My homeboy Jacques Spitzer is going to dig into some creative examples and the way they approach creative, which is going to be awesome. There's also some ways we can leverage AI in this process. And what I'm most excited about related to AI and some tools that Google has built is AI can allow us to test and iterate and try new things a little bit faster. So I believe to get really great creative, you have to have smart humans. So you got to have the right creative strategists, the right people driving the content and the creative. But then you can use AI to kind of multiply and to move a little bit faster. So a couple of the tools that I like, there's what's called flip and trim. And so we've seen quite a bit of success now with YouTube Shorts. So ads on YouTube Shorts with a couple of our bigger brands. We're one of the early adopters in running ads on YouTube Shorts. And if you just take a landscape video, same video, no other changes other than flipping and trimming to make it a vertical video, 10 to 20% lift in conversion. So same content, just now optimized for the shorts, for that what's what I'm looking for? Channel. Yeah. We'll call that a channel. Absolutely. There's also ways now you can do AI-generated voiceovers and text and other editing. So again, we can take good creative concepts and then test and iterate more quickly, because the whole key is finding the right hook, the right angle, the right demonstration, the right combination of things. And AI can make that happen. And Google is driving some of those tools. They're free to use, and I'm excited about them.
And so, not to, sorry, no worries. So
when you give two guys clickers, things are going to go wrong.
Up here.
Sure, I'm going 40.
It's a good thing they don't have laser pointers. Just to get on the AI thing and just kind of frame up for everyone too, I think our philosophy around AI is to make things easier for folks. It's not to replace jobs or people or to replace all the work that you all do around creative or targeting. It's to give you more opportunity to understand what works well for you, multiply that confidence, and to put more relevant content and creative in front of your consumers. And Google's always been about that kind of automation. We probably should have called it AI to begin with, because when ChatGPT came out, they had a real strong marketing push on us. But hindsight's 2020. I think what I really love about this slide is just it makes me think about the AI is only as good as the information that you put into it, just like any database or tool or software that we have access to today. And so you're not really competing with AI or Google's AI or Meta or whomever it may be. You're competing with another marketer who's using it. And just to give you, I'd love to share one example before I hand it over to Brett. And this is before the huge AI push, the kinds of results that you can see from this, and what you actually, the limited amount of things that you need to get started. So I worked with a sub brand, not Subway, but pretty large, about 2,000 locations or so. They were heavy on TV, very long form, very anthemic type videos, and we tested YouTube. And what we used that test for was to understand who really resonated on that platform. And we found it was 5 kind of key archetypes. But what we really uncovered was that in each region, those archetypes had a very different taste in music. And we used AI to build thousands of ads off of one base video that just pulled in the type of music that archetype liked by region and associated it with the regional promotions that were happening at that time in a 6-second ad. And we lowered cost per visits to their store by 50 cents. And it was $1 to start, it was 50 cents at the end, and increased their basket size from $14 to $20 for those customers who were touched by YouTube. One video, 5 different pieces of music in each region, and their promotion strategy. And that video that type of strategy ran for 2 years. And we just switched out music and the promotion strategy and saw the same success that whole time. So there's no way that we could set up campaigns to do that without using something like AI, but also small businesses can do that kind of activity now too. You can take 1 or 2 ads, uncover that, with OMG or with your own team, uncover that kind of insight and turn it into action in your campaigns and with YouTube. So I'm really excited about what the future of YouTube has to hold, and I'm really excited about what Brett and the crew is going to talk about today. We'll be around if you have questions about the Hanger or about Google. Feel free to ask, and thank you for coming.
Give it up for Mike, ladies and gentlemen. That's good.
Appreciate it.
Absolutely. Awesome. Okay, man, we're just getting started, just getting warmed up, just getting into it, getting into the flow. Everybody feeling ready? Do you feel good? How's your energy level right now? Very high. David, in the front row, you can always tell people in the front row, that's where the energy is right here. And David is he's laser focused on me right now. He's in it. He's in the game. And so super excited about this. We're going to dive into the 5 ways to scale. And I think it's going to be transformational for you. But before we talk about the 5, I want to talk about the 1, right? Because here's what I know. I'm a realist, right? I'm an optimist, but I'm also a realist. You're not going to remember most of this. You're going to forget most of what I'm about to say. But if you can remember one idea, one strategic shift, one tactical adjustment, one mindset shift. And Mike said this a minute ago. We're going to kind of go back to it. I think the way we've talked about YouTube in the past, the way it's sometimes presented, sets YouTube up to fail a little bit. And so likely understanding how do people use YouTube and the brands that are really scaling on YouTube, what are they doing with it? I think that's going to totally shift and totally change the game for you. So we're going to break that down for you. Also, one connection. Don't anybody here say you're an introvert? That's probably dangerous, asking introverts to raise their hand. That's the last thing I want to do is raise my hand right now and announce to the world I'm an introvert. Even if you are a little bit introverted, make time to meet people around you. You'll see my team, the OMG team. Why don't you guys raise your hands? It's kind of dark in here, probably can't see it anyway. They're wearing the Get After It shirts. That's kind of one of my slogans. I say it all the time at the office, but Get After shirts. So you got a Google or YouTube question, ask that team, ask the Google team. We got some folks from Raindrop to talk creative. So invest in connections as well. It's going to make a big difference. A little bit about our agency. For those who don't know, this will take about 30 seconds. We're a performance agency, focused mostly on Google, YouTube, Amazon, and email. Manage about $100 million in ad spend annually across platforms. And so what we're going to share today, based on data, based on real case studies, not just ideas, this is proven stuff. Worked with some pretty cool brands over the years too, like Boom by Cindy Joseph and Native and Organifi and Overtone and lots more. So going to be sharing from that success as well. And one thing, in addition to being known as the Google and YouTube guy and being passionate about that, I'm also known as the guy with a whole bunch of kids. And so that is my family. And if you're struggling, I see some real wide-eyed. This is usually the reaction I get from at least a few people. In case you're struggling to keep track, that's 8. Count them, 8 kids. So my wife and I, it's my wife sitting next to me, not a blended family. We decided we're going to have 4 or maybe 5, and then we just totally overachieved. And so here we are with 8 kids. And people look at this picture, especially with the dog, and they're like, man, those kids are adorable. And I'm like, that's because you don't know them. But in all seriousness, I wouldn't have it any other way. They're amazing, but it is chaos. Beautiful chaos, but it is indeed chaos. So I want to share a quick story with you, gets us introduced, kind of starts the day. So that's my daughter, Sophia. She's 11. If you look at that and think, she looks a little bit sassy, You would be correct. She is. That's my mother-in-law, Tammy. That's where she gets the sass, I'm confident. And then that picture, lemonade stand, obviously. Who had a lemonade stand as a kid? Anybody here, entrepreneurial, had a lemonade stand? That's a good chunk of the room. Yeah. So I remember lemonade stands when I was a kid. We'd set them up in the neighborhood. Nobody would come by. I don't know if all the people in my neighborhood hated kids. I don't know if they were like, hey, we don't want to set these kids, we don't want these kids to get a big head. So we made 50 cents. It was a real waste. So a couple years ago, my kids, led by Sophia, said, hey, Dad, we're going to start a lemonade stand. And I'm like, cool. It'll probably fail. But it's cool that you're going to do it. I didn't say that, but that's what I was thinking in my head. So I started a lemonade stand. That is not a picture of it. It was such an underwhelming lemonade stand, I did not take a picture of it. So it was like umbrella, sign, lemonade, that's it. So literally 2 minutes after opening the lemonade stand, Sophia runs in and says, Dad, somebody gave me a $5 bill, didn't want change. And I thought, cool, that's your day. That's the whole day right there. A few minutes later, Dad, somebody gave me a 10, no change. And then a 20. And it just kept, so after about $100, I go outside. What's going on here? Is a kid standing in the street, stopping cars? What's going on? Because we live on a pretty busy road. We're on 5 acres. We live in Missouri. It's not a bad place for a lemonade stand, but it's not the best either. And so I'm like, my wheels are turning. And so I'm like, hey guys, why don't you, they're facing the road with the sign. So traffic going this way, facing the road. I'm like, hey, just turn and kind of, work the sign, smile. And I think the success was getting to Sophia's head because I heard her go to her siblings and she said, guys, Dad's trying to give us business advice. We make more money than he does. And so we'll never let Sophia live that down. But I think we can kind of get into that mindset sometimes, right? Where we're like, I got this figured out, right? I know what to do. I'm a meta ad master, or I crushed it in TV and radio. That was my world way back in the day. But I know you're all here, so you're open to learning, you're open to new ideas. I would just suggest, don't be like Sophia, maybe rock that vibe, but be open, right? Be open to the advice and the input and the stuff we're going to share today, and I know you will, and it's going to be fun and hopefully inspiring. So, 3 mistakes that I believe are holding you back that will really shortchange PMax or YouTube, either one. So the first one is forcing campaigns to work outside of their strengths. So we're running campaigns, running YouTube, Performance Max, Discovery, remarketing, things like that. But I think we often approach campaigns with the wrong mindset. Now, anybody here an Italian sports car fan? Anybody here a Lambo fan? Okay, a couple hands. Okay, most people don't want to admit that either. I don't know the story behind this guy, but I'm really, really curious. So I don't know if this is one of those reaches where the guy's like, hey, I can afford a Lambo, but I will have to live in it, and it will have to become my work truck. I don't know if that's the scoop here, but I know anytime a sports car enthusiast sees this, it just kills them. It's painful on the inside. That's not what the car was designed for, right? But sometimes we do the same thing with our campaigns. We try to take a Google shopping mindset or Facebook mindset and apply that to YouTube, or we try to take a YouTube mindset and apply that to Google shopping. It doesn't work, right? So how are the campaigns designed? What are the strengths of those campaigns? How do we leverage that to the full to get good results? So a couple of examples we'll share a lot throughout the day. Some buddies of mine helped launch Purple Mattress. They grew to 150 million plus. A lot of that was by running YouTube in the early days, top of funnel YouTube. Dr. Squatch, this is Jacques Spitzer and his crew. They created these ads. So you get to hear more about that potentially later, but grew from 3 million to 150 million. Largely on the back of YouTube ads, and there's Meta in there, of course, as well. And then Organifi, we kind of helped with some YouTube here, but grew to over 100 million profitably, and YouTube was a huge driver of new customers. But YouTube functions differently than other platforms, and we'll dive into that as well. Boom by Cindy Joseph, longtime client. I think we worked with him for 7 or 8 years now. So Ezra Firestone, the founder, longtime friend. We started working with them. Facebook was the driver of new business. In fact, he told me, he's like, hey, Facebook is how we get new customers. Google is for remarketing and just kind of sweeping up and getting conversions. So finally convinced him to try YouTube, and we grew that from nothing to now the number 2 source of new customers. And so this combination of YouTube and Google, very, very powerful. Grew 30% top line sales that first year we were going hard on YouTube. Grew the rest of Google by about 200% just by launching YouTube, and so the results were pretty powerful. Talked about this already a little bit, that everybody's watching YouTube. My 6-year-old, my 73-year-old dad, everybody's watching it. Average session duration, 42 minutes. So people are spending time with YouTube. We've got time to interrupt them. During primetime hours, more people watch YouTube than really any cable network available. 68% of people say they bought something they learned about on YouTube. And then I love this, and this really plays into how people use YouTube, but 43% of people use YouTube, but they bounce back and forth between YouTube and search. So I'm watching YouTube. I've got a purpose for watching that YouTube ad. I may or may not click on it, probably won't click on it, but then I'll go search around that time and learn more about that brand. So number one, we're forcing people to work out, we're forcing campaigns to work outside of their strengths. And then number two, we're not understanding that campaigns work together, right? This is a team sport. How many sports fans, NFL fans do I have in the audience? Yes, couple enthusiastic sports fans. So, if you didn't know football, you may look at offensive linemen and say, they never get in the end zone. Rarely. Occasionally they do. They never get in the end zone. Why are we paying these guys so much money? What good is an offensive lineman, right? But anybody that knows the game knows that a quarterback is worthless without an offensive lineman. The running game does not work without an offensive lineman. I love basketball too, big NFL guy as well. Love the Bulls from the 90s, right? You look at a guy like Dennis Rodman, rebounding machine, defensive player. He rarely scored, but he set up scoring opportunities for Jordan and for the rest of the team. And that's the way some campaigns work too. Some campaigns are designed for conversions, other campaigns are there to set up the conversion. And when you understand that, and when you understand how to orchestrate that, you kind of think I like the analogy of an offensive coordinator. That's kind of what I believe strategists and media buyers should be like. How do we get this right team of campaigns and even team of platforms to work together to reach our business objectives? So it is a team sport, and we need to function like that. Really, this is kind of the way online shopping looks now. There's a trigger, something we want to buy, something we want to think about. We go into either exploration mode, which is kind of open. We're looking at all the choices out there. Or we're evaluating, so we're narrowing and looking at a couple of different options. Throughout all of that, and then through to purchase, there's a Google product that will allow us to reach the shopper during that process, if we know how to organize it correctly. And in fact, 86% of people say they touch Google at some point in time in the shopping journey, even if they're going to buy on Amazon. And we have a large Amazon practice at our agency, but Google and Amazon work hand in hand. For a lot of people, even if they're going to buy on Amazon, the internet still starts with Google, and that's where people begin their journey. Billion shopping experiences every day across Google. So across all those channels, platforms, 1 billion shopping experiences every day, which is pretty crazy. And then there's this final mistake, and then we'll get into PMAX. Not getting the right mix of smart humans and AI. Anybody a little nervous about AI? Anybody a little bit nervous? I think all of us should be, probably. Jacques Spitzer's raising his hand, waving it. Yeah, I'm a little bit nervous. I'm excited about it. Generally, I'm an optimist. But there's some things to be nervous about with AI. The key, though, here is we got to get the right mix, right? The right mix of smart humans and AI working together. We don't want to be fully manual. And I know I've got some agency friends, some other friends that are like, nope, going to do this by hand, right? Others that are like, hey, just feed the machine, right? Just take the day off. Just give it some assets and let the machine go wild. But ultimately, you got to do both. Better strategy, more leverage, more speed when you leverage both correctly. All right, let's dive into Performance Max. How many of you guys are currently running Performance Max? That's a good chunk of the room. How many of you is Performance Max the best campaign type or one of the best campaign types that you run? That is fewer hands. You got some OMG guys raising their hand. Thanks, guys. I appreciate that. Yeah. So that was way fewer hands. So a lot of people raised their hands as you're running Performance Max. Fewer said it was the top campaign type. That indicates to me that there's a problem. So we'll try to unpack that here as we go. But I love talking about Performance Max in this session, even though we're really digging into YouTube and top of funnel growth, because for e-commerce, shopping is like the foundation, right? Google Shopping is a foundation. If that's not going well, you're never going to really be able to press the gas as much as you would like on YouTube. Also, Performance Max has YouTube baked in, and there's some ways you can leverage YouTube directly through Performance Max. And so I'm sure all of you know, but in case you don't, and we got some folks live streaming as well, Performance Max is all of these channels, all 7 channels rolled into one campaign. So launch one campaign, reach shoppers in all those places where they can be influenced across Google. And like I mentioned, if Performance Max isn't a top campaign in terms of total conversions, but also return on ad spend, there's likely a problem. And so we'll hopefully uncover that as we go. One of the first things we got to keep in mind is that it does require our best assets. So just like Mike talked about earlier, AI is only as good as the assets you provide it. And so we're talking copy for search, right? We audit hundreds of accounts every year. It's always amazing to me that we look at search campaigns, even for big brands, and it's kind of meh. Like the copy in search ads is, you can tell it was like given to an intern or someone rushed through it or nobody cares, right? And so it's kind of bad copy. Or we look at our shopping feed and we're like, those were great pictures. Like what were we thinking? We selected those pictures. A lot of merchandising that kind of comes into play with Google Shopping, and we don't always think about that. Or display ads. Do we have the right images, the right headlines for display? So PMax, if you want it to work, if you want it to really be PMax, I heard someone call it performance meh one time, which, sorry Google, that probably hurts some people's feelings. But if you want it to be performance max and not performance meh, you got to give it your best assets. And so I love these examples. Overtone, this is merchandising right here, right? Google Shopping, #1 comparison shopping engine outside of Amazon. If I'm looking for hair color and I see those images compared to maybe just a plain tub or tube of something, that's got my attention, right? I'm seeing colors, I'm seeing, it just looks cool. Like I want to click on that. That's good merchandising right there. So even thinking about how do I optimize my product feed? Because again, if we want to go really fast on YouTube, we got to have this strong base, and Performance Max will do that. So it really comes down to right audience, right assets, right structure. If you do that, you get results. Let me show you some results here before we look at some specific ways to break down Performance Max. Large automotive brand that we worked with for years and years. They were on Google Shopping, switched to Performance Max, increased impressions by 110%. That was not easy to do. They're a multi-six-figure a month spender on shopping. So we raised impressions, lowered CPCs, and grew revenue and improved ROAS, right? That's a win, right? Those are wins across the board. And so this is what you can do if Performance Max is structured the right way. It's going to spend more than shopping. We've seen it spend $10,000 a day pretty quickly. This was for a really large LTV brand, and they leaned a lot into subscriptions. And so we got them to spending about $10,000 a day at almost a 2x ROAS on the first purchase. So this was, they mainly were focused on LTV, but almost a 2x ROAS and spending $10,000 a day and growing. We've seen Performance Max go to $50,000 a day or more for the right brand in the right scenario. Okay, so I'm going to break down 3 strategies quickly, but I'm going to break these down for Performance Max. This is how we get Performance Max to work. Any music fans in the neighborhood here? Lots of music fans? Okay, good. You're in the right place, being in LA. So the first one we're going to call the Marley, right? So this is my nickname. I don't know that anybody else at OMG uses these names, but I think better with like pictures and names, and so this is what I give it. But this is kind of the low effort, the lower scale. You can still scale a little bit, but this is the no worries approach, right? We're just going to run Performance Max. It's going to be nice and easy. It's going to work, but we're not going to spend a ton of time on it. So this is likely one campaign and maybe one asset group, maybe multiple. I'll kind of show you how to determine that, how to decide if it's one or multiple asset groups. And then we can just not totally let it do its thing, but we can let it mostly do its thing if that's what we want. We could be the no worries type of approach here. So I like to theme products either by individual products or by categories, and I'll show you kind of how we do that, how we think about that. So this is the way you really want to look at it. So it's Boom by Cindy Joseph. We got mascara on the left. We got moisturizer on the right. How easy would it be to write headlines, to choose images, and to have videos that would sell both of those products? Could you write a headline right now that would sell both mascara and moisturizer? I'm seeing some smiles, some shaking of the head. Maybe it's real generic, you could. What about a video? What about a video that sold both? Maybe if it was like branding type of thing, but this is the way I would look at it. If we can't easily do this, pictures, headlines, descriptions, videos, to sell multiple products, then they need to be separated, right? Separate them into their own asset group, so the machine can go wild on that, so we can get the right message to the right person at the right time. So that's one way to look at it and think about it. And then we do want to get the right audience signals. So you want to give Google, these are my converters. These are people that have bought from me in the past. These are my subscribers. And you want to do custom segments. And so this is kind of what a good asset group should look like. This one's all about Boomstick, makeup replacement product that Boom offers, all about Boomstick, keeping all the headlines, all the images, all the videos focused on that product. And this campaign works really, really well. Now, if you want Performance Max to just kind of be shopping, so let's just say, I want to keep YouTube, I want to keep Performance Max mostly shopping, then you can put everything in one asset group, right? And that's kind of when I found Google leans into shopping traffic more than other areas. Or you could run a feed-only campaign, which I'll kind of highlight in a second. All right, so let's give it the next test. I know somebody hung out at Muscle Beach the other day. I think Cindy hung out at Muscle Beach. Anybody gonna hit Venice Beach while you're here? Okay, a couple of you, great. Nobody like Arnold, man. This guy was a legend. I call this strategy the Arnold. Bigger results, a little more work, right? You gotta feel the burn a little bit. You gotta get the pump in there to make this work. AI is still doing its thing, where there's not manual labor, but we do have more work to do here. This is where we're running multiple campaigns, likely with multiple asset groups in each campaign, but likely we can see more growth and faster growth. I like a top products campaign or a top category campaign. Sometimes those campaigns are one product. So campaign with one product, that way we can control bids and budgets and just go nuts on that one product. And so here's just some samples of what stuff looks like if you're looking inside a good account. We're seeing these headlines pull together for this product or for this category. We're seeing the images. We're seeing what this looks like in Gmail and inside of the Google Display Network and other areas inside of Google Shopping. And so it's going to show you like, okay, do we have the right combinations here to really scale? And then the final one for Performance Max is I call the wizard, right? This is more the control freak. This is where you like to tinker, you like to get your hands dirty, like to roll up the sleeves a little bit. Anybody here a bit of a control freak when it comes to your advertising dollars? Yeah, R is shaking his head or nodding his head. All the OMG peeps are agreeing with me here, of course. But this is where we're going to experiment with things. We're going to go wild a little bit. We're still going to let the AI do its thing because that's what it's made for. But we're going to push the envelope and we're going to see what can happen with PMax done in this way. So this is kind of maximum growth potential with this approach. And so these are some of the campaigns that we would run here. So top product campaigns, scale campaigns. Sometimes we're going pretty low ROAS, just trying to get a lot of scale. We do have like an all products into kind of an efficiency campaign. And then we like to test no feed campaigns and feed only campaigns. So the no feed campaigns, that's a way to kind of get Performance Max to lean into YouTube if you have good video assets. So if you have good video assets, Performance Max can and will lean into YouTube a bit. And then feed only, basically that makes it operate more like Google Shopping, more like smart shopping in days of old. And so that's the wizard. You know, you can start with Marley and work your way up to wizard. You can just go all in on wizard. If you work with OMG, we're likely going to start just somewhere in the Arnold or the wizard type area so that we can really maximize Performance Max. So I'm bullish on Performance Max. I think the team here would agree. It's like the future of Google. That's where it's going, right? But got to have the right strategy, got to have the right assets, got to have the right breakdown, the right audience insights. If you have that, you can really go nuts with Performance Max. Okay, couple things. I did put together a blueprint for Performance Max. I'm going to show you how to get that for free. Kind of walks through Performance Max setup if you want it. Also have top YouTube ads guide for free. Get that, kind of learn from the best YouTube ads. I'm not going to explain this one, but basically this is a budget model where you can look at how spending more on top of funnel leads to bottom of funnel growth and kind of how you can divide your budgets. And so all that's free if you use that QR code. Basically, you just fill that out. You'll land on a page where it shows you how to use all of those tools. And so we're going to dig into YouTube here in just a minute, but want you to be able to get those resources here kind of as a midway point if you want them. And so I'll leave that up for just a second. Everybody feeling good? Everybody good? Performance Max feeling good? Yeah, I got one whoop. Can I get another whoop? Can I get the whole crowd to do whoop? 1, 2, 3. Okay, that was good. Yeah, I like that. So here we go. Let's talk about a couple of other things before we dive into YouTube. One, branded search campaigns. I know some people call this a tax, right? My buddy Moiz Ali, founder of Native, was a native deodorant. Now it's much more than deodorant. But he always said, branded campaigns are a tax. They're a tax that Google levies on our brand. I don't think that's wrong necessarily, but I don't think it's the full picture. How many of you guys hate running brand campaigns? Anybody? Yeah, okay. I got a couple enthusiastic hands. Here's one way to think about this. I'm going to tip the hat to Greg Maycock on our team. Raise your hand, Greg. If you get a chance to talk to Greg Maycock, super smart dude. Works at OMG, been with us for 5 years, 4 years. I just make up numbers. 6, okay. 6 years, I told you I'd make up a number, okay. So I think it was Greg that came up with this first. I get it. If we're paying for a customer that we've already had for years or a customer that's already bought from us in the past, why would we want to overpay for them again, right? And so one of the best things you can do, actually quote first because this is great, if you look at someone like P&G, the way they look at branded search is they use that as a real bellwether for how the brand is doing. Because one of the greatest signs they see of this being a real brand is people searching for that brand by name. That's when you know you're getting traction in other places. Your Meta's hitting, YouTube is working, maybe you got traditional media that's working. If you start to see branded search really take off, you know other stuff is working. But why would we just pay the same regardless of customer? So here's how we split brand. And like I said, we audit hundreds of accounts a year, some really big spenders, people spending $300,000, $600,000 a month on Google and YouTube and more. And I don't think I've ever seen this in an account that I've audited. Splitting up brand into two main buckets, brand NCA or new customer acquisition versus brand loyalty. So if you can separate your brand campaigns into people that have bought from you before, now you just bid efficiently on them, right? Maybe you're more just to craft the message about repeat purchase, maybe you bid for extreme efficiency. But then for new customers, if someone has never bought from you in the past and they're searching for you by name, there's no guarantee they're going to buy from you, right? You are not Nike. We are not Adidas. Right? Someone that's searching for you by name and all they've seen is a YouTube ad or a Meta ad, they're not 100% sold yet. So you want your ad to show up to that person, but you probably want to measure a little bit differently, bid a little bit differently. So this is one of those game changer moments, I believe, separating out brand NCA versus brand loyalty. Then we can more easily measure brand growth. And so I think this is one of those unlocks that helps you scale down the road. Okay, next thing, and this is kind of the last foundational piece before we really go hard on YouTube. Next level remarketing and loyalty. I love this quote. Anybody a Dan Kennedy fan? He's not as prominent as he used to be. Although, any Russell Brunson fans or funnel hacker? Okay, not okay. Well, I'll skip the Russell Brunson story. Okay, we got one fan. I'll just tell you the story later. We used to work with Russell Brunson and did some cool stuff with him, but I literally thought Dan Kennedy was dead. Like he sent this letter one time, like, "Hey, I'm about to die. I'm sick." But and then a few years later, I saw a video with him and Russell Brunson. It's like, Dan Kennedy's alive, and he really is alive. Everybody thought he was dead. Anyway, this quote, which is great, he said, "The company that can spend the most on marketing wins. Not the least, but the most." How many of you think ad costs are going to go down in the next year? Next 2 years? Yeah. Will the cost of anything go down? Probably not, unless we have a correction or downturn, recession, that type of thing. So having the mindset of I've got to continually get CPAs lower is probably not a long-term winning mindset. Now, I'm not saying spend inefficiently. I'm not saying don't cut waste. I'm not saying don't find what is your customer acquisition cost or your ideal CPA. But this goal of spending less and less and less is not going to work, right? We have to learn how can we spend more. How can we get our remarketing to work? How can we get our LTV up? How can we spend more over time? Because if I can spend more, I can outmarket my competition and I can accelerate faster than they can. And so if you've got great remarketing, you can go harder at the top of the funnel. So if I get good branded search, if I got Performance Max in place, then I've got loyalty and remarketing, now I'm set. Now I'm ready. I've got those pillars in place. Now I can really push YouTube hard. So a couple things, this will be really fast. One is reorder campaigns. How many of you guys sell a consumable? Probably people buy again and again. That's a good chunk of the audience. That's great. So how often should someone reorder? Well, think about that and then run reorder campaigns. Guys from Live Bearded, can you raise your hands? Guys and girl from Live Bearded. We got 4 bearded brothers and 1 non-bearded sister, and we're excited that you guys are all here. Give it up for the Live Bearded guys, if you would, please. Mostly just because they're cool. And I'm going to show some of their ads, but you got to reorder this stuff, right? You got to keep the beard looking good at all times. So just a simple reorder campaign. Hey, it's time to buy more beard oil, right? Is it time to replenish or restock? Is it time to reorder? I love this. Learned this from Ezra Firestone. Bought X, not Y. Hey, have you bought our moisturizer but not the mascara? You may not even know we launched mascara. You got to check it out. Did you buy this product but not that product? Here's why you should consider this other product. Now, we have an email department, email and SMS. Love that. It can help you scale in a lot of ways. It's essential, right? A lot of e-commerce revenue goes through email and SMS. And so some people are like, well, why don't we just do email and SMS? That's what I do for reorder. That's what I do for loyalty. Well, think about it just from this perspective. What are your open rates? 20? 30? Maybe if you're awesome, they're 50% open rates. So what about the other 50 to 80% of people that don't open those emails? You can cost effectively reach them with Google remarketing and loyalty campaigns. And again, we're raising LTV, we're increasing purchases, we're giving ourselves the ability to go hard at the top of the funnel. This is another area where we audit a lot of accounts and everybody's doing remarketing and loyalty. Almost everybody's doing it poorly, right? You're not alone. Right? So not picking on anybody here, but a lot of times we're just like, yeah, remarketing, it's easy. We just set it up and we forget about it. But if you're strategic about it, you can really scale and scale quickly. All right, so let's dive into the first section on YouTube, YouTube for Lift. Mike talked about this. YouTube for Lift, not just direct conversions. And here's what I firmly believe now after having accounts that by themselves spend millions a month on YouTube, to those that spend, 20, 30, 50,000 a month and everywhere in between. The greatest impact from YouTube is still more on the lift side and not direct conversions. You can and should and will get both, but the lift will be bigger, so we'll kind of break that down. I'm just kind of an advertising junkie. I love advertising. I still remember the day that I saw a Ginsu knife commercial. I don't remember what day it was, but I remember seeing a Ginsu knife commercial and thinking, one, that's cool. I went and told my parents they should buy a Ginsu knife. They didn't, but I was a great spokesman for it at the time. And then I was like, I wonder who makes these ads. It'd be really fun to make ads like that one day. And so here I am. But TV ads, this is really how YouTube works. YouTube is a lot more like TV, right? We're not clicking on a TV ad, but we're viewing that ad, and then later we're doing something. So I mentioned infomercials. I'm a big fan. I do have a podcast, couple of them. I recommend you check this one out, E-commerce Evolution, episode 230. My buddy Jordan Pine, he's a longtime veteran of the infomercial space. So as he breaks down some of the infomercials he was involved with, you'll recognize the products and the brands. But I wanted to ask him, tell me the math behind infomercials, right? So where do people purchase? Because all these infomercials are like, hey, call us at 1-800. Anybody here ever picked up the phone and called from an infomercial? Okay, one person, that's cool. I don't think I ever have. And a lot of people, millennials and younger, you're like, dude, I don't pick up the phone unless I'm texting somebody. I'm not doing that. So the math behind infomercials, this is the way it breaks down right now. So 20% of people do pick up the phone and call to order the product. 30% go to the website. So 30% see the infomercial, they go search, they're on Google, they find the product on the website, and 50% buy on Amazon. Crazy. Most infomercials never mention Amazon. Most of them don't say, go find us on Amazon. That's just what people do, right? They see the infomercial, they want the potato peeler, they want the magic microwave thing, whatever it does, and they're like, but I'm not gonna call, maybe I'll find a deal on Amazon, or maybe I'll just Google it and find something there. But this is where purchases happen. I'm confident this is the way YouTube works too. People see a YouTube ad, they're on YouTube for something else. They're likely not going to click your YouTube ad. They're going to keep watching, and then they'll circle back later, either on Amazon or on YouTube, and that's when they'll make their purchase. Okay, so what do we see? So when we go hard on YouTube, right creative, right audience, right campaign structure, all that's good, this is where we see the biggest impact. So branded search lift, I recommend doing a search lift study, and that's something that Google can do. We can talk you through how that works. If you're going to invest in YouTube, may as well set up a search lift study as well. It'll show you the impact that YouTube is having on branded search. We also see an increase in direct traffic, right? We hear this from our brands where they're like, well, I think YouTube is working. We're getting a lot of direct sales right now though, right? Lift in direct sales, or we're getting a lift in unattributed sales. So people buying and we don't really know where they're coming from. but it coincides with when YouTube started to scale up. We see shopping and performance max take off. We see remarketing take off. So this is a lot of where we see the impact of YouTube. True Earth, longtime friend, we helped them launch on YouTube. They now have, I think, like 7 or 8 videos with over 150 million paid views and still scaling on YouTube. But when we just got to the $50,000 mark in spend, so just spending $50K a month on YouTube, this is what we saw across the Google account. Branded search conversions up 59%, shopping revenue up 366%, and then remarketing up about 80%. So all of that, we didn't do anything different, right? We already had the campaign structure. We were already running our normal playbook there, but we introduced YouTube, and it did well, but it really created that lift across those other channels and other campaign types. So the lift was strong. Another brand, this is a hair care brand, can't mention the name, but they were a big spender on Facebook. They ran TV ads. They could never get YouTube to work. So YouTube never worked for them. We came in, helped them kind of retool their creative, just gave them some advice for their editors to make changes. And we got YouTube spending. And we were spending kind of mid-6 figures a month growing this brand. And then iOS 14 happened. So we grew YouTube ads as the number 2 source of new customers ahead of TV. And then iOS 14 hit, and they had to stop YouTube because they were worried about attribution and stuff. We also managed their Amazon business, and this is what we saw on Amazon. So over the course of a couple of months, branded search volume on Amazon dropped in half. So we didn't change our Amazon strategy. We didn't stop bidding on things with our Amazon search. We just turned off YouTube, and branded search on Amazon cut in half. Now they're back. We got it going again. They got their attribution fixed where they were comfortable. It's back now, but that's what happened when we shut off YouTube. We're from Missouri, most of Team OMG, go Chiefs, Patrick Mahomes, come on, he's the greatest and the best to watch for sure. I love this continuum here of, what different channels do. Are these like assist campaigns, displaying video? Is it, organic search or paid search kind of on the far right end where Travis Kelce is there making a beautiful catch? But what we can do here, if we run direct response type YouTube and awareness, which I'll break down kind of in the next piece here, is we can maybe skip some of the campaigns in the middle. We can maybe get a few touches on YouTube, 3 or 4 or 5 touches on YouTube, and then kind of shoot someone all the way over to branded search where they can convert, right? So tell our story, build the brand. Maybe we do it in such a way that someone doesn't even feel compelled to do a lot of comparison shopping. They see our message, and now they say, I'll check that out. I'll go look at that site, and then hopefully they purchase. So in the end, we may be able to avoid some expensive clicks and go straight from video, which can be very affordable, right to branded search. Now, I'm not going to break down this math. Anybody here really love math? Anybody here a math kid? I actually like math. I don't like accounting, but I do like math. I'm not going to break this down, though, because this could get real boring real fast. But basically, we've kind of broken it down where you can look at what is a branded search impression worth. So not even if somebody clicks. What if someone just searches for your brand name and they do nothing else? What is that worth? So if you kind of break it down here, you just trust me, or I can send you the slides later. But a branded search for this, and these are made up numbers, but the percentages are based on real clients. $5.86 just for the impression. Now, branded click is worth a little more than double that. Branded click is worth about $12, $13. So if we can spend a little bit of money on YouTube and drive a branded search, even branded search impression, it could be worth about $6, right? Or if we drive a branded search click, it could be worth 12 or 13 bucks. Now, if we can do all of that for $1 or $2, that's pretty impressive, right? You don't measure it the same way that we're used to. This is not just looking at my campaign. What's the ROAS for this campaign? What are the conversions for this campaign? That's not the way this works. We're looking at the overall lift and how much did we pay to get an increase in branded search. And so we can break all this down for your brand and show you this. It's going to be a lot more meaningful when it's your numbers. But just know this is the way this can work. And then here's like kind of the cost of a branded search click. This is pretty good averages for a lot of our brands. But you can also, and Jacques Spitzer's got a breakdown here too later that talks about Meta versus YouTube on click-through rates. But click-through rates on YouTube are not that great. Like 0.48%, 0.5%, not even 1%, right? 0.5% or less. But even still, you can sometimes get clicks on those videos for $1.25, right? And in this case, 100,000 a month, say on YouTube awareness, could get you 4 million branded views on those video campaigns. And you have to break it down for your brand, but that could be transformational for the number of people searching for you, wanting to buy from you, and ultimately purchasing from you. I don't want to talk about this much at all because this gets a little bit complex too, but another thing that Google can run for you and we can help orchestrate is a CDI BDI report. Basically, that's Category Development Index and Brand Development Index. And so this is where you're looking at regionally across the US, if you're targeting the whole nation, where is our category strong? So where are people searching for beard products, or where are people searching for this type of automotive product or this type of supplement? And then where's our brand strong? And so if you can find areas where maybe the category is strong but the brand is weak, that's a great place to push hard and get people to buy your brand. If there's an area where your brand is strong but the category is weak, we're just going to try to harvest the people that are already interested in that area. So you start to see a breakdown. It looks kind of like this. This will be unique to your brand. But where is your, and in this case, the green areas where the brand is the strongest. The red areas are where the brand and the category are the weakest. And then you can decide kind of how do I want to set up my campaigns. You don't have to think about this really hyper local, but it's not a bad idea. And for a lot of products, a lot of brands, this is kind of next level YouTube stuff where you're beginning to think about how can I go hard in this part of the country, and I can measure this part of the country versus another part of the country and see how things shift from the brand development index. Again, more signal, more information to help you grow and scale. All right, last piece with YouTube. This is really what everybody thinks about, right? I want to grow on YouTube, so this is what I want. I want direct conversions from YouTube. Hey, I do too. We run YouTube to grow OMG as well. I want direct conversions. It's a lot easier if I just see those direct conversions. And so let's talk about what that looks like. It does come down to creative. Now, Jacques Spitzer is going to go all in on creative. His presentation is fun. You're going to laugh. You're going to weep with joy. You're going to hound him for autographs later. You're going to be like, will you just be my friend? This is all, sorry, Jacques, I don't know where that came from, but it was fun. And so anyway, he's going to break down creatives in a minute, but I'll share a few things with you to kind of set the stage on creative. The ads are different, right? You do have to say enough. If you look at a Facebook ad, Facebook can be just a scroll stopper, right? The video on Facebook can just be to get you to stop. And then all the text, the calls to action, everything around it, that could be what sells you or makes you click. With YouTube, the video stands alone. The video has to say enough. So sweet spot for us, 1.5 to 3 minutes. It can go a little bit shorter. It can definitely go longer, but that's kind of the sweet spot. What we've found is what you say, the story that you convey in the ad is more important than production value. However, YouTube is a place where often higher production value does work, right? Once you prove this is a hook, this is an angle, this is our message, and then you up the production quality, it can work really well. I've heard from advertisers that sometimes you go bigger on production value on Meta, and maybe it does, maybe it doesn't help, right? YouTube is a place where it often can, but you don't have to start there if you're new to YouTube, right? Focus on the story. That's more important than production value. And what's also awesome, and this is another reason to test and to invest in creative, is that good creatives have legs. For Boom by Cindy Joseph, but a lot of other big brands, we've had a winning ad that has run for a year, sometimes 1.5 years, sometimes 2 years. We had one hair care brand, 2 years. We had a winning ad. We tested stuff against it. Nothing beat it. We spent millions and millions and millions of dollars on that ad, and it just kept working. So it's like the opposite of TikTok, right? TikTok, you burn through stuff in a day or a week or whatever. YouTube can last. You want to still be testing constantly, but it can last. I'm going to break down 3 winning formulas that we've seen, and these are more like, hey, how can we start with YouTube? Or if YouTube isn't quite where we want it to be, how can we start to iterate and test creatively to find some winners? So here's a couple of winning formulas. I'm going to call this the mashup explainer. So we're explaining the what, the why, the who behind our product, and we're doing it though with a mashup of either influencers or actual customers. So I'm going to show this ad, not all of it, but I'm going to show it. This is Overtone Coloring Conditioner. Here we go.
Here we go. This is insane. This is so bright.
It doesn't really matter what your hair type is. A product like this is going to work for you no matter what.
Today, I am dyeing my hair for the first time with Overtone.
It's a semi-permanent color depositing conditioner.
It's vegan, it's moisturizing.
It's really, really easy to use. I'm gonna put my hair in like
6 sections.
I applied it on my dry hair.
You want to make sure that you are fully saturating the product on your hair. And by saturation, what I mean is you are not leaving a single strand of hair behind.
It smells really good. It smells like really fresh and clean.
I love the fact that there's no dripping, there's no slipping.
Okay, awesome. So that's the mashup explainer. I could show the whole thing, but you kind of get the idea. I love that it starts with energy, right? We got this squeal. I'm about to color my hair today. It's got real influencers and real customers, but it's fast cuts. Fast music, fast cuts. There's text. We see the product. We see the product in action. We can say, hey, this seems kind of easy, right? I want to go pink with my hair, blue. They also do normal, traditional colors as well. But I want to go different with my hair color. That looks doable. That looks approachable. Doesn't last forever, but it doesn't last a day. It lasts longer than that, right? So that video is cranking across different channels. So that's the mashup explainer. Next one, the irresistible offer. Going to tip the hat to the boys at Live Bearded. This was all their work, but these guys are here, so you should chat with them and learn from them. The irresistible offer, I'll play just a little bit of that. This is where, if you've heard how Bezos pitches Amazon Prime, he says, I want to stack so much value in Amazon Prime that people feel irresponsible saying no, right? Where if you say no to this, you're like, man, am I just an idiot? Like, what's wrong? Like, why am I saying no to this? And so that's what you want to do with this irresistible offer. I'll play the first part of it with Spence from Live Bearded.
Check this out. If you have a beard, you have to get our sample pack and try 24 different products for only $10. Here's the deal. We know buying grooming products online sucks. It's a pain in the ass to find products and fragrances you actually like. Trust me, we get it, which is exactly why we created our sample pack. We want to make it as easy on you as possible to find the best beard products for you. Our sample pack has a single-use serving of our beard oil, butter, wash, and conditioner in 6 different fragrances. That's 24 different products for only $10. Plus, when you grab a sample pack today, we'll toss in a free gift just for giving us a try. And on top of that, we'll give you a $10 gift card to use in your next order. Yeah, that's right. That means you get a sample pack with 24.
So what they were doing there, for guys who've never tried beard products, it can be a little bit intimidating. I'm not used to buying like grooming products for myself, right? So this allows people to test it, try it, see for themselves, and it's just loaded with value. So I pay $10, I get samples so I can try it, and I get a $10 gift card, which is brilliant in a lot of ways. One, the value is huge. Also, it's leading to repeat purchases, which is also brilliant. This is how much better that creative did than previous creative tests. So this may or may not work for you, depending on your brand and what it costs and how you deliver it. But that irresistible offer, how do we get someone to try it one time? If we know that if they try it one time, a lot of people will keep buying it, then let's try to craft an irresistible offer. Now the next one, the third one, the final one that I'm going to show here, Jacques Spitzer's got an awesome example of this too that he's going to share in a minute. But we call this the split screen UGC. I love UGC, user-generated content, right? Because nothing is more believable, nothing is more relatable, nothing is more trustworthy than UGC. When it's done the right way, when it's like stilted and fake, then it doesn't look right. But if it's real UGC, then nothing like it. However, UGC can sometimes be a little bit boring, right? You got people that are not paid actors. You got people that are just, average people talking about a product. Sometimes it can be a little slow-paced. Sometimes it needs a little something added to it. So this isn't my favorite example. I like the example Jacques is going to share later. And we actually had one brand that I couldn't share their creatives where this just scaled to the moon. But basically the idea here is a third or a half of the screen is UGC. The other 2/3 or half of the screen is product demo or showing the product. So I'll play like 10 seconds of this.
Hi, my name is Carrie from Nashville, Tennessee, and I love my Life Boost coffee. I love knowing that it's organic, pesticide-free, and mold-free, and the taste is amazing.
So what's even better though is if you break it down where you can show movement rather than just a static image of the product, show movement there. And there's a couple of my favorite examples that Jacques is going to share on that. But basically with this, you get the power of UGC, but you get the energy, the momentum, the engagement of a demo, and you put those two together. I'm confident if you've got halfway decent UGC, you run this type of format, and you'll be able to get some traction out of that using YouTube. And so another thing we're looking for, and this is something whether you full on hire an agency or you bring on an agency for consulting, and we kind of do both. We like do whatever fits for the brand. You need creative feedback loops, right? So is your campaign team, your strategists, your specialists, your media buyers Are they giving good data back to the creative team? I remember talking to the guys at Raindrop, Jacques Spitzer and the gang, about this one outdoor product, and we're like, look at this image that's just crushing it. And as we looked at that image, we're like, oh, I know what to do with that image. We're going to totally change our hook. We're going to flip the hook and try something new, and that unlocked another level of growth. But what we found, even with big brands, creative teams over here being creative, media teams over here being number focused, and they're not talking, right? So you got to have this creative feedback loop, because if you're testing these things constantly, hey, people are dropping off too quickly, right? New hook. We got to get a new hook. So test the new hooks. Or people are watching, but they're not clicking. So we got to adjust the product demo. Something about the product demo isn't answering questions. It's not overcoming objections. There's something in the product demo that's broken. Let's test a new one. Or the offer. The offer just needs to be reworked. We're not giving people enough energy, enough reason to click or to take action right now. So test those things. And if you're getting the right data from the media team back to the creative team, you'll know these things. We've also seen that sometimes it just needs to be a new lander, right? I had a skincare brand where view rates, click-through rates, everything was great on their video, but they weren't hitting the ROAS they wanted. They reworked the landing page, totally changed the campaign, totally unlocked growth for them. Or maybe we just need better follow-up sequences. Get someone to opt in, get a better follow-up sequence, and that can unlock more growth as well. So better email can also help a lot. So 4 campaign strategies. These are super, super quick. Got just a couple minutes, and then we're going to turn things over to Jacques Spitzer, and he's going to go wild on creatives. First one, and you're going to hear about this a lot after lunch, but video action campaigns. These are campaigns that are designed to get conversions. So we're giving the machine the goal of an opt-in or a micro conversion or a full-on purchase. And we're saying, Google, go find me more people like this. So we got our audience targeting, we got our great creative in there, and we're saying optimize to get these conversions. This is what we did for the longest time. This was the only thing we did as an agency for a long time, was video action campaigns for YouTube. They do work, and they do create lift and direct conversions, but you can do more than this, right? This may be a good place to start. This is not where you want to finish or not what you want to do only. VACs plus Performance Max, I already talked about that, but getting those two working together, that can unlock new growth for you. And then I think this is really where it's at for most brands. This is not where you want to start, but this is where you want to go, is getting the right mix of video action campaigns, campaigns designed to get conversions with awareness campaigns. Now, we sometimes see in the very beginning where it's maybe like an 80-20, 90-10 split, with 80% or 90% going to VACs, 10 to 20% going to awareness campaigns. But as a brand scales, we've seen that flip sometimes, because awareness campaigns are just super, super cheap if you know who you're trying to reach. And if your ads are really good and they're really landing, sometimes you flip that and you go 80-20, 80% awareness and 20% kind of cleaning up and getting conversions. But these two working together, there's no exact right or wrong formula. You got to test it a little bit. But VACs plus awareness campaigns, this is where most of you want to end up. This is where we're headed with essentially all of our brands. So you do get more direct conversions, but also more lift at a lower cost, and we can show that lift. So very, very powerful. I'm seeing more and more brands now go local store, right? So you're selling online, but you're going to go local store as well. And so there's some ways to craft local YouTube campaigns for in-store sell-through. To sell more inside a brick and mortar store, we can use YouTube to do that as well. I'm essentially out of time, so a couple quick things. I do host podcasts, actually 2 of them, Spicy Curry and E-Commerce Evolution. Check them out. If you're a brand owner and you're like, hey, I like to talk on podcasts, I got a cool story, I would love to interview you on the podcast and allow you to tell your story, get a little publicity for your brand as well. And then, hey, you may be saying, I'd like to talk strategy. I would like to dig in, look at what am I not doing well on YouTube, where are my opportunities for growth, look at my PMAX campaign. So that is an opportunity to request a free strategy session from the team at OMG. I also recommend, hey, meet with us while you're here. Look for the Get After It shirts. I'll be around as well. I got a couple of meetings right after this, but I'll be around too. So take advantage of that. Meet with the team. You can also email us or just check out the website as well. But we're here to serve you. We believe in the power of this stuff. Want to help you go to the next level. And so with that, thank you very much. And now I'm going to do this awkward thing now where you just clap me off the stage, but I'm going to introduce this guy. So Jacques Spitzer, Raindrop Creative, one of the best in the business when it comes to creative. Love working with this guy. We end up speaking at a lot of events, and oddly enough, we end up wearing the same outfits.
Every time.
We don't talk about it.
So weird.
We don't email or text about it. We just show up and we're like, we are rocking the same vibe. But seriously, I'm more impressed with these guys than essentially anybody else out there. You're gonna learn a ton, you're gonna be inspired. Give it up for Jacques Spitzer.
Thank you, Brent. Thank you. All right. Yeah. Not only do Brett and I, often wear the same outfits, at least he's someone in my life that if we do match, I'm like, at least you're a really good-looking, cool guy with a lot of kids. So I always feel good about that. And I will say as well that I would not be here today. I truly believe that if it weren't for Brett Curry. He knows this story, but I haven't probably ever told it publicly. Some of our first campaigns to really break through, to really start scaling to 50 million, 70 million, 100 million views scalably on YouTube happened because the buyers from those campaigns were watching some courses at the time. This is probably 5-6 years ago on how to buy YouTube ads. And we tracked down who was teaching those courses. I want you to guess who? It was Brett Curry. So, brands like Dr. Squatch and William Painter and so many that have come after them would not have seen the success they did without the courses that he was putting out. So just by being here today, you truly are learning from some of the best in the world. And I just wanted to give Brett the credit that is due for so much of the success. So I'm gonna be talking about exit velocity. I was trying to think about, what does it look and feel like to see success on YouTube? And when, you've probably heard the term over and over, scaling to the moon. I've seen and felt that so many times on YouTube in a way I've never seen before because, the earth has gravity. It pulls you back. But once you break through that gravity into outer space, you just fly, right? And that's really the dynamic that most people have with YouTube. I'm curious, how many of you in this room have experienced that feeling of escape velocity with a campaign on YouTube? Just by a quick show of hands. Yeah, I love it. I'm looking over here, I'm like, yes, Organifi, yes, Live Bearded. You have those moments where you experience that, and that's why we're all here today. Because either we've experienced it, or we want to experience it, and I'm gonna be taking us through all of the creative ways that we think about it, and giving away all of our secrets because you made the long flights or drives to be here. So I'm gonna start with a little bit of good news, which is there's a lot of activity on YouTube. I think oftentimes YouTube sort of gets lost in the shuffle because it's so consistent. What I mean by that is like TikTok comes and goes, Meta comes and goes, new platforms, new this. Man, YouTube's stronger than ever. In fact, when you look at it, it's like my dad's on YouTube, my mom's on YouTube, my son's on YouTube, I'm on YouTube, right? Multi-generationally, it's crazy. I don't think there's any other platform in the world. Even television's so fractured now, connected television, linear television. It's pretty much the only consistent platform, it's a shame that more advertisers don't understand how to leverage it because this is where the attention is. People are spending time here. Across all generations. And again, I don't think it's been a long time, I would say since, pre-internet, that there's been this much opportunity multi-generationally. But this challenge is that more content is uploaded in 30 days than major TV networks would create in 30 years. Just the velocity of what's out there. It's the biggest sea we've ever seen, right? It's just a sea of content. And I think that's both the challenge and the opportunity that we have to think about creatively is you can't go into it thinking you're entering a pond, you are entering a sea, right? And so I'll be your captain today. My wife, I wanted to wear a full astronaut outfit, and my wife was like, you're going to Google, you need to be a little bit more serious than that. But I thought it'd be fun. I'm going to be taking you through this idea and really these, not only the creative examples of what we do, but formulas, as well as some things around attribution that will cross over really interestingly with Brett. Just as a show of hands, how many of you have at least either heard of myself or Raindrop, the agency that I run? All right, that's good, about half the room. And so we've done incredible work over the last 12 or 13 years. I'm really proud of it. And I'm really proud to say, as an agency, we've made a lot more people other money than we've made ourselves, right? I feel like sometimes with agencies, it's like, what's the deal? We've seen a lot of success with our brands. They've done over $1 billion in sales, and I have to update that number. I'm proud to say we've now had 14 campaigns that have crossed that 10 million view mark on YouTube. And 10 million isn't like some kind of special number. It's just we've seen that brands that see true lift and success are able to sort of reach that point, and then that campaign becomes something that can work with them for years, as Brett was saying. These are some of the brands that we collaborate and work with. Obviously, Brett was pointing out Dr. Squatch was one that when we started with them, they were 6 years into their business. They were doing $3 million in sales. I was sitting across from Jacques, the founder, and we were eating chicken sandwiches together. And he was like, man, I need to get off off Facebook. At the time, he was only working on Facebook. And I was like, all right, well, let's work on this together. We did a lot of brand work, a lot of different types of ads, which you'll see some of them today. But that brand has grown to well over 300 million plus and has really done incredible work on YouTube and now on connected television, linear television. We've also done a lot of work with Laundry Sauce, which I'll be showing you all today. They're a little bit more they're like a fast-growing startup. So I like to bring different examples because sometimes it's easy to look at the brand that's already at 300 million and like hope that you can do that when you're doing 5 or 10 million. I wanted to bring you some examples of kind of what we're doing today. And this is like the three things, when I was thinking about it, the three areas where people don't get to experience breaking through from the gravity. The first is creative. So we're gonna spend a lot of time on creative today. And so creative is something you're gonna hear over and over and over again, but I think you felt it. I mean, when we watched that Live Bearded commercial, we're like, yeah, I get why that works, right? Like no one was sitting there like, oh, that works, really? It's like, no, that's a good ad. That's really compelling. That guy's super jacked with a nice beard. Like, I mean, I was thinking all the same things you were. And so we're gonna be spending a lot of time on creative today, but I also wanna point out that buyers really matter, especially when it comes to YouTube. I only trust maybe 5 people in this world to truly run YouTube ads. I mean, that's how small that number of people is. And because part of it is what sets up this next part, which will be expectations for attribution. But also, it's because I've seen 3 or 4 campaigns that were just announced dead on arrival. They're like, hey, Raindrop, sorry, we popped it in, it didn't work. I'm like, oh, okay, like you spent all this money, this time, you ran $10,000 worth of ad spend, it just doesn't work, okay? And then we hear back from them 2 years later, and they're like, how you doing? And they're like, oh my gosh, we got with a new buying team, and we went from 7 million to 25 million, and our hair's been on fire. And I'm like, well, when you hear that story 3 times, you're like, okay, well, some things sometimes when you know the creative's good, it does have to be in the right hands, but it also has to be with the right attribution expectations. And we're gonna go through all of that. So let's start with the biggest creative mistakes to avoid. Because I think that sometimes it's easy to focus on what you need to do, but I think we have to start with what we should not do. And I'll also say that, yes, a lot of this is gonna be true of YouTube, but it's true of pretty much all online advertising. So the first is that we want to focus more on what, as a brand, a lot of times we wanna focus more on what we wanna say rather than what people will actually hear. And I'll unpack what that means. But I would say that number one piece is pretty much why 99% of people fail with online advertising, especially on YouTube. The second is we forget the context and the environment that we're showing the ad. YouTube is its own world. If you expect something to work on one channel, on the other, it oftentimes won't. And then the third is there's an actual storytelling formula. I've gotten people from time to time, they're like, oh, if I watch all your ads back to back to back to back for YouTube, they share some similarities. I'm like, yeah. If you want someone to pay attention to you, if you want someone to spend 2, 3, 4, 5 minutes potentially watching an ad, sure, like they do. They do have a certain formula that you have to use in order to grab, maintain connection, and ask for a purchase. So I'm gonna ask you guys to do a little mental exercise here. If you drove here today, or maybe you drove in yesterday, I want you to think about how many cars you remember seeing on the road. You know, I think we passed, it was funny, I made this drive the other day and I saw like 5 white Teslas back to back to back. I thought they were in a club, but I think it might just be an LA thing. But the bottom line is for the most part, you don't notice any cars you drive by. I mean, think about in your lifetime how many cars you remember seeing on the road. You pass them every day. And so if you were to pass that Lamborghini, especially that Lamborghini that Brett just showed with the thing on top, just as a show of hands, how many of you would at least notice it, right? If you're not raising your hand, you're lying or you're lazy. And so what's interesting is when you see a car like that, I know I do, my mind goes to, oh, that's a green Lamborghini. I wonder what they do for work. Green's a very bright color. I wonder why they chose green. I wonder if I accidentally hit that car, like what would happen to my insurance premiums? Like my mind starts going and then I instantly forget about it. I get in, maybe you get into work. And if someone was like, hey, did you see that green Lamborghini on the way to work? You'd be like, yeah, actually I did. I did see that. And the reason that matters is because our brains are hardwired. It's literally called the reticular activating system if you want to impress your friends at home. But it basically means that your brain blocks out almost everything, right? It just flat out blocks out everything. We think about that in more practical terms as like, we have 5 seconds until you skip, right? But the reality is even before that, I don't think you have 5 seconds to win someone over, you have 2. Right? Your brain is just like ignoring everything. I mean, you won't remember 90% of the people in this room today. You won't remember that Brett and I wore the same exact outfit. Like you just won't. Your brain just tunes it out. So I think the other, this is the kind of this part 2, is that there's a certain posture brands take that is creating, it's kind of accentuating this idea of accidentally being ignored. And I believe it sort of starts from a posture that you've probably heard of, which is people don't buy your what, they buy. Why? I heard of your why. So you guys have probably heard that. People don't buy your what, they buy your why. And I think that was a monumental step forward for brands. The problem is it is a deal killer when it comes to online advertising. It will not work. And I'm going to give you a little analogy, so hopefully it can be a little bit more sticky, which is at one point we believed the earth was completely flat. And then we found out that it was in fact round. And that was a big breakthrough. Like, wow, the earth is not flat. But there was still one thing that we still believed. It's like we still had a lot of information we had learned about the world. But we still believed the earth was the center of the universe, right? And then we found out the sun was actually the center of at least our solar system, that we revolve around the sun. And so that fundamental breakthrough is huge. And I want to think about the next 2 slides, the fact that people don't buy your why, they buy their why. We revolve around people. We revolve around the fact that we need to earn their attention, we need to keep their attention, honor their attention. We need to tap into their why. It's not about us. And I'll give you a little bit of a sense. I really believe that when I look at how we've been successful, it's that we figured this out a little bit sooner than most. I was reluctant to even share it at one point because I was like, okay, this is kind of our secret sauce. Like we reverse engineer this idea. And I want to give you a sense. I want you to think about a business, like you're here today. And if I were to say, I'm here today because I love watching businesses achieve their escape velocity, right? How does that make you feel? Makes you feel a certain way, you're like, all right, good for you, right? Versus if I say, you're here today because you are in the top 1% of all marketers, and you know that one insight can unlock new channels and millions of dollars. How does it make you feel? Right? It's like, it's not about me. It's never been about your brand. It's about what people are trying to achieve from buying your product or your service or who they're aspiring to become. And so if that is your starting point, that's how you create hooks and moments that matter. And so this is sort of just a general checklist to kind of, if you take your ads and you look at them, I want you to ask yourself, in the first 15 seconds, are you using language of us or we or nothing at all? Or are you saying you? Like, are you speaking to people? You know, a lot of times I'll see brands, see this all the time with YouTube ads, it drives me nuts, is that they'll provide what I call context over connection. So they'll have if you were to make a ad for this event, if they just did like a broad sweeping contextual shot of the room, like, oh, there's people here, it's just to set the context, the scene, it's like immediately you're tuned out, right? It better be me saying something outrageous in the first 2 or 3 seconds if you're gonna pay attention, otherwise you're done. So connection over context is so important. And I will add one more thing, the wide shots versus close-up shots. I'm gonna show you in a little bit some of the openings that have really scaled really well on YouTube. And you're gonna start to feel that sense of what's gonna grab you versus having these wide shots where, especially on a phone, like that's a really small person on the screen or a really small product. And so we're gonna look at the differences between those. The second thing we see, this is like, I feel like I have to preach this to people, is if you go onto YouTube and you click the trending button, what are you gonna see? Music videos, makeup tutorials, product reviews, prank shows, cute animal videos. As an advertiser brand, like that's what you're competing with. I mean, I'm just gonna let that sink in. It's like, this is unlike any other sort of channel. You are truly amongst some of the most entertaining things that you could possibly have on the internet. And so a question we get a lot is, does my brand have to be funny in order to sell on YouTube? The answer is no, but it has to be entertaining. It has to be. I'm gonna show you all an example in a little bit. Back half of this is just loaded with examples, but I'm gonna show you a full example of one that has like a little bit of humor, but it's not really a humor forward video, but man, it is entertaining. And then there's gonna be a story I can show you in a bit. I think the other big breakthrough, we kind of had like if I were to think about 3 big breakthroughs that like a lens that we see creative through, yes, the first one is, the idea that your brain is blocking out things and you gotta break through the noise. Yes, the second one is you gotta have their why in mind. The third one was when we realized that the way we've told stories for thousands of years fundamentally changed about 10 years ago for online advertising. I mean, that's truly crazy. The way books are written, the way songs are written, the way that movies are written, plays are created. Everything has changed in the last 10 years. I'm gonna show you guys the new curve in a little bit, but that fact alone blows my mind. That the way that as human beings, I think we hear that people have short attention spans. That is fundamentally untrue. They have short consideration spans. Fundamentally untrue that they have short attention spans. People, I am shocked by how many people will watch a 3-minute ad from us. About sometimes 10 to 20% of people cold watching the entire thing. And so my dad once said to me, I'll never forget it, we started making these longer form ads. I think I showed him the very first Dr. Squatch ad. It's like 3 minutes and 30 seconds. He looks at it and he goes, that was really long. And I was like, oh, I mean, I thought it was good. And he's like, who's gonna watch this? And I was like, Dad, did you watch a 30-minute infomercial yesterday on like some tool you'll never buy? He's like, yeah. I'm like, well, this is only 3 minutes. And he's like, oh, that's a good point. Which is funny because then one of our top selling brands of all time was Works, the power tool company, which made the transition from 30-minute infomercials to 3-minute internet ads with the same idea in mind. All right, enough talking about what's wrong or how you want to think about it. Let's jump into what works. Let's see examples and go from there. Can I get a yeah? Can I get some energy? Yeah. Love it. So, I think we've already established it. I'll maybe be annoying, but you gotta break through the noise. This is not news to anybody. There's a lot of ways to do this. You can stack them, but you have to do it either visually with compelling storytelling. And there's a guy online right now, I forget even the brand, it's like High Smile maybe, but it's like a purple teeth whitening product. Dude's a genius. I'm like watching the ads, I'm like, my teeth are already white, but like I can't not watch you. He's great. You gotta honor people's attention. And so I think we always think about things in like these 10-second moments of like every moment only earns you 10 more seconds. Like just because you hook them doesn't mean you got them. You gotta like, keep going. And then you gotta give them something. We use the term edutainment a lot because it's like education, it's entertainment. And so it can be knowledge, and it can also just be a smile. I think that people are fundamentally on the internet to learn something new, waste time, and laugh. That's pretty much why people spend time on the internet. All right, so I feel like typically my presentation has like a big animation, but we'll keep it simple. This is a traditional story arc. What people tend to do is have a climax in the back half or towards the back side. It's very popular in a 30-second ad. It's like someone's like making their breakfast, you're following the story, and then it kind of like unveils some sort of moment. And this is what you would see with the hero's journey. People love the hero's journey. There's got to be sort of like something that happens, and you go towards it, and then they're triumphant. Problem is, that doesn't work anymore. This is the new story arc. Actually, I wish I could come up with it. We were already doing this, and then I found it in a YouTube presentation, and I was like, oh, that's what we're doing. Thanks for giving me an actual chart. So I do give them some credit down there. But yeah, no, this is how we design and think about our ads. You have to start high. You have to start with so much urgency. A lot of times we're starting with a problem statement. Dr. Squatch just starts with like, the soap you're showering with is shit, right? And yes, like cussing is used often just as like a pattern interrupt. I mean, you're just scrolling through the internet. I mean, it's one of those things. You don't have to do that. You'll see a lot of our examples won't, but it is a reality that people have to be shaken out of their mindset. And then we always want to prioritize maintaining connection over selling. It's like, if you are trying to make that hard sell too soon, it is a dance. You want to make sure that you're giving people either a lot of education. Brett mentioned True Earth earlier. I think their ads are fantastic too. We just did one with their team, Ryan McKenzie over there. They're brilliant marketers, but they do a great job of riding that curve of like, they don't ask for the hard sell in the first couple seconds, or even sometimes the first minute. They build out the story. But then we get to the place where you have to ask, right? The idea is you want people to click the link, you want them to buy, you want them to consider, and all of this happens in a motion where the back half of the ad leans more heavily into like validation and continually asking people once the hard work's been done. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna play an ad. This is not picking on this ad. By the way, I just randomly, I literally typed in like Tide ad, right? Like I'm not picking on this particular ad, but this is usually what big brands or even small brands will do is they'll make an ad and then they'll try to just load it into YouTube. And I want you to feel in your heart, like, would I skip this after 4 seconds? Like, I just want you to feel it and ask yourself, like, would I watch this? Even if you're the target demo.
We really had our hands full with our 2-year-old.
Yeah, so naturally, we doubled down with a new puppy.
Sure, they're twice as cute together, but now we've got double the stains.
And double the odors.
Thankfully, we also have Tide Ultra Oxy with odor eliminators.
It can handle double trouble because it's the #1 stain fighter.
And the #1 odor remover.
I thought you guys were helping.
For the #1 stain fighter and odor remover, it's got to be Tide.
Okay, that's an ad, right? Nothing wrong with it. The problem is, I feel like at this point, I would not watch that ad. I just wouldn't. I would skip it. I'm trying to get to my Mr. Beast video or my Zach King video. I don't know what you're watching, but it's like, it doesn't command and demand your attention. It doesn't keep you wondering. I'm about to play you an ad that launches in 2 weeks. Ask them for permission to show it. But it's also for a laundry product that's doing well. It's laundry sauce that I mentioned earlier. And I want you to just feel like it almost dares you to skip it. Even if you don't care about what they're selling, you're like, what the heck is this ad for? That's just the beginning state of how we think about advertising. So I'm gonna go ahead and play that example.
Unfortunately, it's really good. My life was simple, predictable, routine, and I threw it all away when I started using laundry sauce, the world's best smelling laundry pods. I lost my job in middle management. They made me CEO. So much power. No one can resist the French saffron. Sweet, spicy, botanical. Get out of my life, you beautiful smelling pod! I never used to think about laundry. It just used to be a boring chore. Now I can't stop. If you want your life to stay exactly like it is and never change or get better, then don't go to laundrysauce.com.
So what's fun about that is it's not just a random shot in the dark. Hey, let's put something outrageous out there. Like that was the leading ad copy, even on still images on Meta, right? We're not just like, hey, let's just make a crazy ad. We wanted to reverse engineer this idea of like, unfortunately, it's really good. Fortunately, I'm buying $100 laundry detergent now, right? Like, it's incredible to watch their growth, but if they were to make a version of that Tide ad, would it work? No. And so sometimes seeing things like side by side, you can kind of get a sense of like, oh, okay, yeah, that makes sense. If I'm on YouTube, I might actually watch that commercial. And then also, just to parlay into things we're gonna talk about later, we made 5 of these vignettes, right? So we're gonna be testing, different avatars. We're gonna be mashing up and creating variations of them. We're gonna be testing different scent profiles. And so a lot of YouTube also gives you a really nice opportunity to learn because you're gonna be able to see average watch times, click-through rates, things that are showing you engagement that you can take as learnings to new channels. I would be remiss if I didn't mention that there are a couple more selling sort of like rhythms to what we do. So earlier I talked about starting with a problem statement, but there's also the product demo. That's kind of that purple teeth whitening thing I was talking about earlier, where it's like you're seeing the product in action right away. If your product is super visual, that's something that always will perform well. So if you're thinking about it, hey, good to see you. If you're thinking about it, it's one of those things that if you see the product in use, if it's something that's really compelling, great way to start. And then there's also just sort of the straight offer. I would kind of argue that if you look at that Live Bearded ad that Brett shared, it was almost like it went straight into an offer, and the offer itself was sort of the construct for the ad, where it's like, this offer is so good, I dare you to like click away because you're gonna miss out. And so I'm gonna show you, this is gonna be just sort of a montage of some of the best performing openings to ads that we've done. And I want you to see, there's so many different ways you can go about it, but I want you to feel what might be right for you and your brand as you go through this and kind of just get a sense of what can grab people to pull them in to your funnel.
Every day is filled with opportunities to level up.
No! Well, secret agent, it looks like you're in a hairy pickle.
There's got to be a better way to groom your groin.
You have a clean, beautiful home. Perfect for hosting your messy friends.
Do you want a perfect lawn? Does a sloppy yard make you want to just... Me too.
Listen up. The soap you shower with, you probably haven't even questioned what bar of soap you lather up with. Let's face it, most guys don't. They're still using whatever bar their mommy bought for her little man. Is that what you want? To smell like mama's little man? Ugh.
Gross. Boring basic coffee is leaving you dead inside. Thank the Dark Lord, there's Bones Coffee.
Your favorite fragrances shouldn't just be for fancy emergencies. What if you could afford to smell your best all the time?
Your face is your moneymaker, so why would you pair it with cheap plastic? And why does some plastic cost $500?
Hi, I'm Dr. Shannon Klingman, founder and CEO of Lumi, the aluminum-free deodorant for everyone's everything.
Let me paint you a picture. You shell out hundreds of dollars on a pair of fancy sunglasses, and then life happens.
Oh, what's that magical smell?
Well, it's definitely not us.
No need to fear, my stinky peeps.
Whoa!
I know, right?
You smell amazing.
Thanks! It's native.
I used to have a long one, but now It's perfect. When it comes to your brand's URL, shorter is sweeter.
Shorter ones just perform better.
All right. I'm not gonna lie, I have no idea how the last hook performed. It just makes me laugh. I'm just be real. But overall, what you're gonna do, I'm curious too. For those of you earlier asked the question, how many of you heard my name, heard of Raindrop, and asked you to raise your hand? How many of you have seen at least one of those ads? Okay, that's pretty much the whole room. It's what's interesting is that a lot of times people will realize, oh, like there's some connection points here between these brands who are able to spend a lot on their online advertising behind campaigns that really break through the noise. I mean, they can really kick in the door. And we're gonna go over this in a little bit, but the reason, there's just one simple reason, which is, in my mind, you either have a photo that you see on your meta feed, and it's like, photo, okay, that's an engagement. Whereas like average watch times on some of these ads, by choice, people are spending 30 to 50 seconds, right? That brand impression in someone's life, like that's a green Lamborghini. They spent some time thinking about you, engaging with that ad, understanding what you do and what you solve. And so after doing this, I mean, 13 years in, truly like 6 or 7 into creating this content that connects and converts and actually sells. I think the process-wise, people ask like, so how do you do this? The reality is process-wise, we spend, as a team, anywhere between 50 and 120 hours thinking about conceptually, how are we going to get, create, and manage attention before we even write a single word, right? Most companies will make a whole brief, and then they'll write a whole script, and then they'll be like, okay, so then how are we gonna bring this to life? What are we gonna do? What's the storyboard going to be? And so this is just a fundamentally different way of thinking about it. How are we going to make sure that we get and respect and keep people's attention? I'd also argue that when you watch all the best YouTubers out there and all the best content creators, this is just how they think, right? Oh, I gotta do something that's gonna make you click, gonna make you watch. Now they're doing things like, going on $1 million yachts. And I honestly have no idea like where YouTube is going, because I feel like if you're paying attention, it's like they're always doing the next one-up thing. It's like, I gave a stranger $10 million. You're like, damn, like, it's crazy what people are doing. I also want to really make this is such an important point coming out of today. There's a lot of ad inventory that is 6 and 15-second ads. I would say almost now, probably 40 to 50% of what we do is omni-channel, and we do a ton of these 6 and 15-second ads. If you have a brand that's at retail, man, like they can be a really, 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 really powerful ad unit. You can get a lot of velocity, you can get some lower CPMs, people can't skip them. There's a lot of great uses for 6 and 15s, but I want to spend some time focusing on that 1 to 4 minute length. Brett quoted it as 1.5 minutes to 3 minutes, which honestly is probably even closer to where you need to be. And I'm gonna share with you all the things that took us years to learn, so you just get a little head start on your quest. So I love this quote. General advertisers use 30-second commercials, but the direct response fraternity have learned that it is more profitable to use 2-minute commercials. Who do you suppose is more likely to be right? In their magazine advertisements, general advertisers use short copy, but direct response people invariably use long copy. Who do you suppose is more likely to be right? I'm convinced that if all advertisers were to follow the example of their direct response brethren, they would get more sales per dollar. So, love that quote, right? I'm like, damn, that is really true today, 2023. That's 40 years ago. 40 years ago was that quote. It's an Ogilvy quote from 40 years ago. I mean, it gives me the chills, at least. When I was like reading his book, I was like, whoa. Some fundamentals just never change. But why? Why is that true? So one of the reasons is that if you earn enough time with somebody, they actually get enough information to pre-qualify them before they even hit your website or your landing page, which is really important because we spend a lot of time worrying about tweaking our landing page and our listicles and making sure people have enough information, but like you kind of already have the opportunity, if you spend enough time with somebody, to impart a ton of knowledge. Also, it builds a really strong connection with the brand, not just a solution. I can give so many examples, but there's a lot of brands out there where, they spend all the time educating somebody, but then someone can just come and sweep up the person that bought. So I think about, earlier you talked about True Earth, there's Earth Breeze. It's like most people, they don't know the difference. So like you really have to make sure that you're making that branded impression so that they're not just buying the solution. You spend all the money and time educating this consumer, and then they go and buy your competitor because all of a sudden they don't really understand. That can happen, especially in this like meta world where as soon as I click an ad for shoes, I see a lot of shoes. And as soon as I click an ad for whatever your brand is, I see all your competitors. And that's why we find that having a longer form video of some sort can really help people to make that conversion. But the other thing is psychologically is, and we do this at the end of a lot of ads, we'll say, look, you just spent 3 minutes watching this ad. You know you want this. You gotta click the ad. It's true, it's something about spending time with the ad. It kind of like pot commits somebody to like, okay, yeah, I'm interested. Like I can't not be interested. I just spent all this time watching your ad. I will also say that kind of a unexpected benefit is that it can turn random people into salespeople for you. In fact, was it JR? JR's in the room. He made an ad a while back where it was for a pool fence company. You know which one I'm talking about? DIY pool fence. Pool fence, DIY. Yeah. So I saw that ad. I was like, great ad. I don't have a pool. But my buddy had just had a kid at the time. And I was like, you know what? There's a DIY pool fence solution that you can get at a fraction of the cost. Here I am selling the product because I watched this ad and I'm not even the end consumer. And I think that that's where we see, Brett talked about lift a lot. Those are the unexpected benefits of having a really high quality, longer form ad, is that you turn anyone who's watched it into somebody that can turn and tell somebody else who may be experiencing the pain point. Or it allows them to literally just take the link and forward it to the end consumer. And over, we have seen that to be the case for so many brands and services. So I'm gonna show another couple ads here, but one of our best performing ads of all time was about 5 minutes long. It scaled to well over 300 million plus views. You may have been served this or seen it. I'm not gonna play the whole thing. But I do think what was interesting about it was, one, it was just sort of a best of mashup of stuff we had done before. Like we just took this narrative that we'd been working on for years and created this thing that kind of like, reminds me of a boxer that like jabs, right hooks, it does all sorts of things. And so I want you to feel when you watch this, it grabs you, it's interesting, but then you see real people interacting with the product. Then you just see silly stuff. And in the silly stuff though, it works and it endears you so you feel something towards this brand. So this is a Dr. Squatch ad we did. The full version's online if you just type in like Dr. Squatch, save your skin or something like that. But this is just like the first minute and 20 of it. And I want you to get a sense of that rhythm though for like, oh, I see why this works.
You're not a dish. You're a man. Most name brand bars and body washes you rub on your skin are classified by the FDA as synthetic detergent. It's not even real soap. Start treating your body to the natural, nourishing, lathery goodness of Dr. Squatch soap. Get ready to step out of the shower feeling alive.
That smells really good.
It smells like my guy's cologne.
Okay.
It smells really good, yeah.
Smells
really
good?
sexy.
Oh, that smells really good. I would use it, but like if a guy smelled like that too, I'd be like, oh.
If my man was wearing this, I would be all over him.
It's natural. It's kind of like being in a forest.
I would use this on myself. Way better than like the regular store-bought soap.
I'm talking about natural, nourishing, cold-pressed, hand-cut soap for men. So go to drsquatch.com to feel, smell, and shower like this every day. Our soap is handmade here in America, using a process that's been perfected over thousands of years. It's perfect.
So, and something that's kind of funny, like the moments of them arm wrestling or roasting their hot dog and steak over the fire, that we didn't use that for the first year after we shot it. We're like, what the hell are we gonna do with this footage? Like, it was just, we just kind of had it in our plan in our day, like, let's get some random stuff. And it turned out to be a winning formula for us. So let's talk about some simple tips that make a big difference. And these are gonna be things that if you just take one of these nuggets, it could really make a huge difference. The first thing is, I mentioned it earlier, every 10 seconds earns another 10 seconds. I literally watch all of our ads, and so does our team now. Everyone's been trained to think this way. It's like, okay, we call it drag. Like if there can be no part of this ad where I want to check out. Something I'll do from time to time is actually show my now 8-year-old son our ads, because I want to see if and when he checks out. Right? I want to see what happens when attention starts to wane, because if it wanes, doesn't matter what you want to say, no one's going to listen. We always move quickly with cuts. You saw that from and with Brett. And we also want to shake people out of their mindset. I think you felt that with the different hooks that you saw. Obviously, that laundry sauce ad. It's like, okay, if you're just cruising the internet and you're like half asleep in your bed, you get served that, you're like, what is that? It gives you a swinging shot at actually selling. We talk about connection, and I mentioned earlier showing it to my son, but using language at a 6th grade reading level, you hear it a lot, but man, it makes a big difference when you just keep things really, really simple for people. Yes, we're all intellectual beings, but I think we also just don't want to think that hard when we're like cruising the internet. We're there to watch a prank video. We get served this ad before we're about to watch it. It's just a reality. We also talk about just planning out that funnel. That's where it's like none of this works in a vacuum. I loved when Brett made that point earlier, because I think sometimes people have these expectations that just set them up for disappointment. And then I also just have this random note here that like emojis work. I love using emojis in advertising. I think they're underutilized. I think brands are scared to use it for some reason. It's how we communicate with each other. I mean, after this, I'm gonna send Brett some little heart emojis. Also validation. Man, did you guys feel the validation in that Dr. Squatch ad with people touching it, smelling it? You can't touch or smell that product, but people are conveying to you. People are conveying to you how it smells, how much they like it through the screen. Human reactions attract, right? If you have a product that people can respond and react to, super powerful. Putting them as like back-to-back-to-back mashups only builds on that momentum. And then you can convey senses through the screen. That was another thing I just said, but want to make sure, because we smell a lot of stuff that you can't smell, you can't feel, you can't touch. You got to find a way to convey that. And then, man, this was one of those other moments that unlocked a lot for me was, have you guys read the book, I think it's called, by Chris Voss, called Never Split the Difference or something like that. Apologize if I butchered the title, but there's a really cool part in there where he talks about a study where he says people with a certain part of their brain that's been damaged, one of the things that they can do is explain to you a decision that they should make, but they have a really hard time making decisions. And what I realized is that human beings, all of the all the reasons that you should buy something, all the features and benefits and all that, it's all like propane. It's just floating in space, you need it, but you need a spark. Like you need some reason, some emotional reason to buy. And so it's all emotion. That's why we try to make people either laugh or cry or do whatever. It's like we have to pull out emotion because they literally can't make a decision on buying something without it. And so I've shown you a lot of very funny examples. This is gonna be one that swings more on like a entertaining example. And I'm actually gonna show you the whole piece because this was a really, really, really successful ad for them to scale on YouTube. And I want you to feel as you watch it, I'm gonna ask you a couple questions afterward, but a couple things I want you to just pay attention to. Check out, after the first call to action where we say, hey, go to the website, feel the momentum as we kind of, I call it like a kick push. If I don't know if you're into like skating or whatever, I wasn't, but the idea is just you feel the momentum get pushed along, but you also get a sense of it really levels up the brand. And we'll talk about it a little bit afterward, but I want you to feel how you feel towards this brand after watching this ad.
Sick of designer brands keeping your favorite scents out of reach?
Oh, darling, that scent was just made for you. At least a richer version of you.
You deserve better. This is Dossier. Luxury quality scents at a price you can afford. Because guess what? Fragrance can't be patented. So your favorite scent doesn't belong to a brand. With Dossier, it belongs to you. For the cost of a single bottle of this designer brand, you can get all this. We've got over a dozen different scent categories for men and women. From posh aquatic to floral palettes to luscious woodsy aromas. All inspired by the iconic scents you know and love. By brands like Chanel, Creed, Tom Ford, and so many more. We dare you to smell the difference. So if you're ready to step into the future of fine fragrance, click the link. Because with Dossier, the future is now.
Wait, what was now?
For years, the perfume market's been an overpriced, olfactory oligarchy. Some of those bottles you're forking over Benjamins for cost the companies as little as a Jefferson. That's a 10,000% markup. 10,000 for what? Extravagant bottles? Over-the-top marketing? Celebrity endorsement fees? When I want passion over paying rent, I choose Penthouse. What does being rich and famous have to do with smelling good? Nothing. I'm an E-list celebrity. For now. And I smell amazing.
How? You? Offense intended.
None taken. Dossier believes in the craft and quality of luxury fragrance without the markup or toxic chemicals. We source the cleanest ingredients and enlist the expertise of the finest French perfumers. We're made from the same sweet stuff as our competitors from the same perfume capital of the world, Grasse, France. And you know France is always down for a revolution. We're a fragrance company for the people, making affordable scents for the 99%. To wear all the time. Grocery shopping, first dates.
We're starting next Wednesday.
Government is testifying.
Even Zoom calls. Now your favorite fragrance can spend less time sitting on a shelf and more time making a statement in the world. But don't just take it from me. Take it from smart, savvy scent connoisseurs like you, who love nice things. And with our risk-free guarantee, you can buy and try with confidence. And the more you buy, the more you save. So click the link to explore luxury scents at a fair price with Dossier, the future of fragrance.
Okay, so a couple things to point out that you may or may not have felt during that. One is we needed to elevate what can be seen as a knockoff product, right? Let's just start there. Two, we can't make fun of any sort of luxury products or brands because the people that are buying this love the luxury products and brands. That's why they want it. Right? But what we can do is we can poke fun, and that's where any of the humor came in, is at the sort of like gouging profit motives of the people behind the luxury product, behind the market, behind the brand. And so as we go through that, you start to understand, you learn a lot, like that's really edutainment at its finest, because you now know a lot about perfume and cologne. You understand that there's big markups. You understand that Grasse, France is where a lot of the perfume comes from. You understand that scent can't be patented. Like how interesting is that, right? Just as a general thought. And so I just wanted to showcase sort of that example because I think it can be easy to look at like a Dr. Squatch and see people like roasting raw meat over fire and be like, my brand can't do that. Like it just doesn't work that way. It doesn't have to. There's so many different ways to approach that sort of like curve that we're going to ride of grabbing attention, maintaining connection, and bringing people through to the purchase. Okay, so final stretch here. This is where Brett talked about it earlier. We talked about post-purchase attribution expectations. And I would argue at this point I know more than I should about this, not because I buy media, but because every time we see a brand experience escape velocity, I'm like grilling them. I'm like, what are you seeing? How are you buying this media? How do you have the confidence to scale, right? And they've been very generous. You know, our friends at Dr. Squatch, at Shady Rays, at Bones Coffee, a lot of these groups that are scaling they are looking at this through sort of like a artistic way of finding their attribution. And I'll give you a couple more specific examples, but I think that this is where most brands it's like a stumbling block out of the gate. It just doesn't work exactly like Meta or more bottom of funnel sort of like behaviors. And so people just get really discouraged and they give up. That might be why you're here today. You're like, I know this can work for me, but I just get discouraged because the numbers I see in my dashboard are lower than my other channels, so why would I ever spend more money there? I just want to see by a raise of hands. Is that how you, are people here that are feeling that way? Okay, great. That is a really, really common feeling. And I hate to put it this way, because I remember asking someone, how did you know you loved what you did for work? And they said, I don't know, I just knew when I knew. And I was like, that sounds like someone explaining love, which is not super helpful. And so I will not lie to you and say that there's some sort of like super easy way to tell, right? But I'm going to give you what our top brands do to get the confidence to spend more. So the first thing is they are looking at click-through rates, but they're looking at it in the proper context. A lot of times, strong ad on Meta might anywhere between a 1 to, I've seen a 9% click-through rate on an ad once that we did. All that being said, it's pretty common that you're looking at click-through rates. On YouTube, the user behavior is radically different. I know when I get served an ad, and now not only do I have my phone, connected television, I'll open up a new browser tab. I might go to the website directly. I'm not usually going to click the link because I'm there to see another video, right? Like, let's not forget that we just interrupted somebody before they're about to see a video. That being said, it is like an important sort of engagement metric to look at, to just understand, like, okay, people are engaging with this ad, but don't be discouraged that it's so much lower. We talked a lot about like branded search lift, and I think this is sort of, I had a feeling when iOS was changing, my very first thought was like, oh, well, people are just going to start looking at their attribution like our clients who spend heavy in TV or our clients that spend heavy on YouTube anyway. It was like, that's where the world's headed. So it's fundamentally changed. It's like, if you're here today, good on you, because this is where the world's headed. Like, we're never going to get more attribution back. The privacy is never going to be what it was, but it's not like necessarily bad news. It's just you have to become more nuanced and take a little bit more of a leap in how you spend your advertising dollars. And this is just showing like where one of our brands started their campaign, and just watching, they were spending heavily on YouTube, which sometimes helps. It's one of those things where if you're already spending, it's nice to spend even more because then you can see that actual lift. I always laugh. I mean, man, I feel like I don't want to tell any stories because some of them are current clients, but it's like, I have people that are spending $1 million a month on Meta, and they're like, yeah, we ran $5,000 on YouTube, and like, I don't think it's working. And I'm just like, oh my gosh, like, you're spitting into the ocean right now, you know? You're never going to know if it's having that sort of lift when you're spending $1 million a month, $3 million a month on another channel. You do have to go into it with the mindset, we're going to figure this out, we can figure this out. Also, post-purchase survey data. I would say about half of the brands that have been able to scale use post-purchase survey data to finally give them the like, okay, you know, I'm seeing a crazy, like, we were not running more than a couple $1,000s a month or $10,000, $20,000 a month on YouTube. We cranked up our YouTube spend, and now 20% of people, 25%, like a sort of a disproportionate number of people are saying they're finding out about us from this channel, that they're purchasing today because of this channel. It's like, of course it's not perfect, but man, it is so critical to collect that data to give yourself even more confidence. I also have the point here that, you know, all of our campaigns, we launch with at least 2 openings. A lot of times we'll do 5 openings. And a lot of that is important because you can see, I mean, even though the difference between 20 and 29 seconds doesn't seem that significant, that's a 50%, almost a 50% difference in average watch time. And then you take that over millions and millions of views, that's a big deal, right? And so we're trying to look for those like little micro differences in the wins. I'm gonna show you, before I head out today, 2 things that we're experimenting with right now. I can't even tell you that it works yet, right? This is like, just like, this is where we're headed. I felt like I wanted to give you guys a little something to say, hey, go try this. because we're going to be trying it with our brands coming at it today. So the first one is the QR code call to action. I thought this was really interesting. I got served this brand. Someone was telling me how well they were scaling, and I was thinking to myself about what we were saying earlier, how much YouTube is now being watched on connected television. And I want you to just pay attention to just how subtly it begs you to go to the website. So check this out. I'm gonna show like the first minute.
Wearing enough layers to insulate Alaska. That's why you need the new and improved Bearskin hoodie. The 6-pocket Bearskin fleece tactical hoodie that blocks wind and regulates heat for incredible comfort wherever you are.
Thousands of men across the world already love wearing the Bearskin hoodie instead of their regular hoodies. Why? Because sure, your average fleece hoodie provides decent insulation.
I won't play more of it, but you get the point. Really interesting. I know we all know QR codes are on the rise and everything else, but it's a good ad, but I have a sense that they're getting that attribution lift because they can see so much traffic coming to a specific landing page. It's giving them the confidence to scale. The other thing that Brett showed earlier was the UGC split screen. If you spent any time on social media recently, I know I'll see like someone with like a podcast clip, and then the bottom is just like someone like playing with like literally putty or something, or like doing something that has nothing to do with the video. And I think that there is a reality that like seeing two things happen at once is like juggling to the human brain, where it's like, oh, I'm paying attention. So I want you to think about how you can re-leverage your best performing UGC videos in this way. So here we go.
These laundry sauce pods make my clothes smell like heaven. I'm in heaven. I used to hate doing laundry until I tried laundry sauce pods. Laundry sauce is the only laundry detergent designed to keep your clothes smelling sophisticated all day. The scents are delicious and hypnotic, but at the same time, it's never overpowering like some perfumes or colognes can be. No artificial dyes, just raw cleaning power. Go pick some up right now at laundrysauce.com.
Cool. So I think you get the sense, right? Like if we just had a vertical video, we couldn't probably run it in that format. Of course, you run it in shorts. But by seeing the two things happening, it really takes things up a level. And that ad that Brett showed earlier was absolutely fantastic. I'm going to leave you with two final slides. One is we put out a quarterly report for free with all the best working examples that we have. And it's, like I said, it's free. It has all of our like latest knowledge on it. Proud to say probably like 7,000 people or so read it now, which is incredible. We started about a year ago just as an outlet to share some of these learnings. And so would love for you to check that out. And then if you're just like, hey, can't get enough of you, man, that would mean a lot. Feel free to just link in with me, reach out to me. I love talking creative. I love seeing people win. And I'm really, really glad that you're here today. I hope there's a nugget that you take away that helps you achieve that escape velocity. So thank you for having me. Really appreciate it. Thank you. Thanks, guys.